So it turns out, for whatever reason, there is a Lord of the Rings Gollum game. Who asked for this? I don't know. But I think it's safe to say probably no one. Who ordered this made? I don't know, but I think it's safe to say some absolutely clueless executive. But then again, Rings of Power was considered a success, so how can this honestly fail?
We can't find it. The precious is gone. We swear.
Horrible look.
Whether it's a book, a movie, or a video game, creative works generally exist for a reason. Sometimes it's to delight, by entertaining with moving stories or fun gameplay. Other times it's to inform, by exposing the audience to different perspectives. Or it
I think that's a very, very hopeful look on the modern world of gaming right now.
makes you think, with interesting ideas that challenge you to consider or reflect. The Lord of the Rings Gollum, however, is a game that does none of these things.
Makes sense.
Watches us, the Dark Lord. What he sees.
Instead, it thrusts you into the role of the titular character without doing anything meaningful with his defining internal conflict, and sends him on a series of missions that are neither fun to play nor interesting to experience.
Okay.
The one question it poses is, why would someone want to play this?
I crave
Yep.
disappointment.
True. Big true. This is gonna be a
Playing
wild
as
ride.
Gollum sounded like it might have been a decent pitch for a game, since he's one of the more interesting and famous characters in J.R.R. Tolkien's fantasy universe.
He is also, coincidentally, the character no one wants to actually play with.
He and Smeagol are two sides of the same coin. The good person that was Smeagol was tragically corrupted by the One Ring, twisted into this pathetic creature. It's his clammy bare
True.
feet that you step into, ostensibly with the goal of regaining possession of the ring from Bilbo Baggins. However, most of your time is spent experiencing Gollum's life as a prisoner during the years between The Hobbit and the Fellowship of the Ring in a linear, story-driven series of levels.
The greatest part about that sentence right there is the fact that it was a very, very boring time in the book for him. Not a lot of things happen, you know?
Prison Simulator Mordor Edition is sadly less interesting than it sounds. Instead of a grand Lord of the Rings
Probably.
adventure, you are stuck collecting bits and baubles for forgettable NPCs and hiding in bushes from monotonous guard patrols.
I'll just call you ugly.
There are generally 3 parts to any level, ranging
Dude.
from uninteresting to just plain bad. There's the chores phase, in which Gollum goes from one waypoint to another to complete some menial task. There's always some conceptually
Yeah.
different scenario, like crawling through small openings to detonate these explosives, but functionally they're all a series of marches across the same areas over and over again. It never feels like there's any point to it, just busy work. It could be fun to run around with Gollum thanks to his surprising sprint speed, but he has a stamina meter that depletes in just a few seconds and takes far longer to replenish. Trying
Well, I'm pretty sure this is a stealth game. And you know what? Honestly, a stealth Golem game could be really, really fun if you make it actually good. Like, for example, I don't know, trying to stealth your way through an army, trying to stealth your way away from, you know, Sauron, the Witch King, I forgot the spider's name, Shrellock, I can't pronounce it also. It could be fun. It could honestly be fun if I think about it, but I have a feeling this is gonna be the exact opposite of fun.
to get anywhere involves too little speed, too much waiting, and an unfortunate amount of hearing Gollum choking on his own breath.
Nice.
The platforming phases are more compelling, but still poorly designed. Spacious rooms with handles to climb, walls to run, and leaps to take bring a faster pace of action, but the loose and floaty way Gollum moves and the imprecise controls make it feel like something from the PlayStation 2 era. Having
Oh no, sounds like the newest 3 versions of Assassin's Creed right there. It's already beating some games.
experienced a modern Assassin's Creed or Tomb Raider game, it feels far too easy to jump toward the correct point and still fall to your death because you drifted to one side or miss the
Yo.
part of the ledge that has the white line that establishes exactly where you can grab. The paths are rigidly defined and often involve blind jumps or best guesses at what the next intended handle is.
Oh,
Rather
that's a
than
nice
thoughtful
sound.
throwback, it comes across as outdated, a poor facsimile of classics like the Prince of Persia
spiders.
series. Finally, there are the stealth segments, which are simply bad. Anytime Gollum needs to go from point
Wait, you're telling me this is not even a stealth game? So what the hell is this? A chore game? An action game? Are you supposed to actually fight someone? What do you mean? I thought this is gonna... What else could this be not a stealth platform game? Who thought that this was a good idea? Who was so high that they thought that this was a good idea?
A to B undetected, it's going to be a slog. Enemies have extremely limited patrol patterns, are terribly nearsighted, and seem to suffer from acute rapid onset amnesia, forgetting Gollum existed not long after losing sight of him. These are issues that plagued mediocre stealth games 15 years ago, and it's jarring to see them in 2023. There's no cat and mouse game of outsmarting enemies using interesting abilities and clever level design as you do in something like Dishonored or Hitman. You just exploit their painfully obvious blind spots with no objective outside of reaching the designated point. Gollum's only tools are his ability to sneak quietly, throw rocks, and disappear in tall grass or shadows.
Yo, that was
because
so
the enemy
lame.
AI is surprisingly terrible, doing something as simple as clinging to this wall can make you completely immune to capture. Spotted by
Nice.
guards in the animal pits of Barad-dûr? Just jump up here until they lose interest. Eventually, some of the orcs get crossbows, but even then, the threat is minimal. There's no combat per se, which makes sense because Gollum is no fighter when it comes to any opponent larger than a hobbit. You do have the option to strangle.
The fact that you throw a rock and an orc in the orc pits cares about the sound is absolutely the most stupidest idea I have honestly heard in the past 20 minutes.
Enemies, which is on brand, but it comes with some odd caveats. First, it doesn't work on anyone with a helmet. This makes sense for someone in full battle regalia. Smeagol's grubby mitts wouldn't bend steel after all. However, what defines a helmet in this game is broadly open to interpretation. Like, whatever this is on this orc's head, is that a hat? It's anybody's guess, but there's a decent chance he's strangle-proof.
Let's have a little.
The fact that you can actually do that as a golem against a orc, you know, a physically stronger than man creature, and you're a malnutritioned, tortured hobbit, yo, come on.
Also, strangling only applies to orcs. It makes sense you can't choke beasts like spiders, where would you even grab? But humanoid races like elves apparently have invincible throats, eliminating the only method to bypass enemies apart from the bad stealth. A few chase sequences change
Dude.
up the pace, though they are hit and miss. This wagon chase, where you dodge obstructions and archers, is
Oh,
legitimately fun. But this Crash
That did not look
Bandicoot-esque
fun.
run toward the
Ooh.
camera, where you run from an iconic spider, is miserable thanks to the imprecise platforming and inability to see obstacles until moments before you need to avoid them. It is frustrating to
Oh,
play as
wow.
a character who is looking ahead and should see incoming.
This does feel like something out of the 2000s, not gonna lie, like... Modern day gaming is such a blessing, honestly.
Objects, but not being able to see them yourself and die because of it. Hardcore Lord of the Rings fans know Gollum himself is a complex character, both a victim and a villain, but that's not explored in any meaningful way in this story. There are occasional binary choices to answer questions or take action as Gollum or Smeagol, but it never felt like this altered the story or had lasting effects on Gollum himself. Sometimes there's a need for one side of Gollum.
Of course there's no lasting effects. Creating that would be hard, and this is clearly not exactly supposed to be quality. I can literally see the polygons here, okay? I can literally see sharp edges on his tie. I can see You can literally see that his mouth is this line, this line, this line, this line, and a line here. This is not acceptable by any modern day standards. Indie development companies do better than this.
Gollum's personality to convince the other to go along with plans, like when Gollum is hiding from an orc and a painting of the Eye of Sauron sends him into hysterics. The two choices were kill the orc, which Gollum supported, or the Smeagol endorsed option to keep panicking.
Be quiet, be quiet. Yes, very, very quiet.
Picking the correct argument to win the debate from the multiple choice is exceptionally easy and makes it all feel pointless. It's not very interesting to look at either. Even with all the PC graphics options set to epic, places like Barad-dûr look drab and flat. And the empty lifelessness of the Mirkwood stands out in an era of games where lush flora and fauna has become the norm. Gollum's model looks good enough, including his surprisingly detailed wisps of hair, and his mannerisms are well captured, but other characters suffer.
I mean, that's really not hard to capture because he just crawls, grunts, and sometimes talks to himself. Like, it's not really hard to replicate, honestly.
From distractingly stiff animations and a haunting lack of facial expression.
Dude, the beard.
Sound design, however, is strong.
Must go into the tunnel. Too dangerous.
The raspy, almost choking speech of Gollum is well acted, as is the clearer and more timid Smeagol side of his personality.
Was it Deagle who found the precious? Don't listen to evil sorcerers, my love.
It sounds exactly like someone who saw Andy Serkis's performance in the movie trilogy would expect. Even small details, like the clammy sound of Gollum's hands slapping on different surfaces as he climbs or runs, or the reverberation of ringing bells in certain spaces, stand out as authentic, with impressive attention to detail. But even if it looked and sounded uniformly spectacular, Gollum would still feel pointless to play, and that feeling turns to despair when the technical issues crop up. On 3 different occasions during this review, levels needed to be fully restarted, once because of an unfortunately placed autosave, and twice because parts of puzzles were outright broken. So despite the solution being evident, there was no way to advance. They weren't fully game-breaking problems because restarting fixed them, but they were spirit-breaking, playing through areas that were
I think this game is spirit-breaking. The fact that the game crashes and tells you stop playing this, I think is a blessing in disguise, honestly. This does not look good, okay? The game crashing is probably the best design feature that the developers implemented. They knew what they were doing. They wanted to save your soul. They wanted to save you the time, okay? We're not getting any younger.
Interesting the first time, bordered on painful for a second go-round that never should have been necessary. Finally, if for some reason you wanted to go through all of this again, there are hidden collectibles, but they don't offer any sort of rewards. Unless you count this as a reward.
What is this?
It just felt pointless to add to his sad hoard of not-so-precious treasures.
So he has nails, I think that's a tooth, part of a crown, flower crown or something, no idea. A rope? Well, at least he can hang himself, because that seems like the right choice in this situation.
Foxes build all their things with these, always nails.
The Lord of the Rings Gollum fails to provide a satisfying answer to the big whys. Why, of all the interesting characters in the Lord of the Rings lore, would anyone want to play an entire game as Gollum?
That's a good question.
Why would one trade the solid action of prior games in this universe, like Shadow of Mordor, for busy work, uninspired and frustrating platforming, and bad stealth? It's not clear who this is for or what it was intended to achieve. What is clear is that it's not fun to play, and not something to recommend to any but the most curious and dedicated Lord of the Rings fan.
And that still gets a 4. Wow, IGN is really not that great. Admittedly, I think they're best in the industry currently, but still, wow.
Smells.
In any case, I can answer these last questions pretty easily. It's a money grab. You know, Lord of the Rings fans who are gamers are gonna probably maybe try and buy this because, hey, you know, Maybe there was marketing where it said unique Gollum backstory by inspirations of J.R.R. Tolkien and whatnot, or something like that. It's possible. I mean, this is sad. This is really, really sad. But at the same time, very expected. Again, when something like the Rings of the Power is considered a commercial success while losing money, the bar is not really set too high, if I'm being completely honest. I think the bar accidentally fell on the ground. Or through the ground, maybe at this point, who knows. But, you know, things like this, kind of expected. And you know what? They actually have been prevalent throughout every year of gaming that has ever existed from the very, very beginning. Anyway, I'm out. Like and subscribe.